Today I want to talk about something a little different on this channel and venture into the world of television, specifically The White Lotus. By this point, Mike White, the show's creator, has been well and truly inducted into the HBO Hall of Fame through 3 iterations of the series, with each season following the guests at an exclusive 5-star hotel chain called The White Lotus. Naturally, a holiday destination for the wealthy elite is ripe with narratives, and it is through this that Mike White finds the thematic crux of each season, with each one centering around one flaw or vulnerability that the guests have in common. The first season is about greed, the second is about desire, both of which are fairly textbook human fallibilities. But while Mike White could have continued doing this, he instead took the show in an entirely new direction in the 3rd season, focusing on something far more elusive and complex: the self. The 3rd season begins as any other, an eclectic group of characters staying at the White Lotus, this time at the branch in Thailand. In previous seasons, the central themes that unite the characters become apparent early on, with the subject of greed and lust being fairly easy to explore and condemn when shown through the actions of millionaires. But the 3rd season is much more subtle, with the connective tissue between the characters only becoming clear towards the end, as Mike White slowly explores each character's relationship to their identity. And during this day and age, when our lives are built around how we want to be seen and in trying to control this, perhaps there is no greater sin. In previous seasons of the show, there are very clear winners and losers by the end, with some people coming out on top and others that are subtly and not so subtly punished for their crimes. But what's so fascinating about the 3rd season is that the character endings are much more ambiguous, with a finale that raises as many questions as it answers and creates a much deeper exploration of the themes at hand. But while many of these characters have questionable fates, there is one who I believe is the only winner of this season. And in order to understand why, let's first break down the arcs and endings of the other guests. The hotel guests in the 3rd season are as follows: the Ratliff family, consisting of Victoria, played by Parker Posey, Timothy, played by Jason Isaacs, the eldest son Saxon, played by Patrick Schwarzenegger, their daughter Piper, played by Sarah Catherine Hook, and their youngest son Lachlan, played by Sam Nivola. Then we have the doomed lovers, Rick and Chelsea, played by Walton Goggins and Amy Lou Wood. And then we have the girls' trip of Laurie, Kate and Jacqueline, played by Carrie Coon, Leslie Bibb and Michelle Monaghan. All of these characters, bar one, go through journeys that impact their relationship to their identity, with some positive transformations and some negative, leading them to either accept, confront or sacrifice their true selves. To start with, let's take a closer look at the Ratliff family. The Ratliffs are a very wealthy, old money family from Texas. From the outside, they have achieved everything. Timothy has been very successful through his work in finance, and they are very well respected within their community at home, maintaining a pristine image within their upper-class social circle. But at the beginning of their trip, which they are taking so their daughter Piper can allegedly interview a famous monk for her college thesis, Timothy learns that he is under investigation for fraud, embezzlement, and money laundering. And when they return from their trip, he will go to prison and his family will lose absolutely everything. Timothy is a man whose entire identity revolves around his status, wealth, and career. But after discovering that he will lose everything, he goes through a complete obliteration of the self, spending the holiday in emotional agony as he comes to terms with the destruction of his image and the impact it will have on his family. In order to cope with this, he toys with the idea of suicide and even killing his entire family, feeling as though they wouldn't be able to cope with life if they had nothing. After he decides against this plan, he accidentally poisons and almost kills his youngest son, leading him to the profound realization that family is what truly matters in life, and as long as he has this, everything will be okay, finally making peace with himself. Victoria is a classic wealthy suburban housewife. Her life revolves around her family, and she is very dependent on the luxuries that her class affords her. She is very concerned by maintaining the image that comes with being from an old money family, and her values are particularly clear in the way that she parents her children and conducts herself socially. But Victoria's arc in the show is very interesting, because while her character is easy to dismiss as comic relief,
you want to live in Taiwan?
I think she goes a little bit deeper than that. Victoria is used to a certain kind of life, one that is devoid of stress and discomfort of any kind. She has grown used to the luxuries that come with their lifestyle, and while she is soothed by these things, she is most comforted by the social status of her family and maintaining the image that's expected of them. However, Victoria's happiness and identity is entirely dependent on the success of her family, with her version of success being defined by upper-class values, such as where you study, the type of money you have, and who you associate with. But as someone who has grown used to this sheltered world and identity depends on the image provided by it, it has led Victoria to have a fear of change, afraid of anything that goes against the familiarity of her world, and coping with this fear through her pill addiction and controlling the lives of her children. Because Victoria's identity is dependent on her family, she sees her children as extensions of herself. She finds comfort in the knowledge that they are on familiar and socially acceptable paths, validating her family's image and herself. But when Piper announces that she wants to move to Thailand and join a Buddhist temple for a year, it threatens Victoria's entire sense of self. She goes into overdrive trying to convince Piper that this is a terrible idea, riddled with anxiety and irrational concerns that stem from her fear of change. After living in a bubble her entire life, Victoria is not well equipped to deal with difficult emotions or circumstances, and we learn that she is known for her reliance on pills to keep calm, despite having a very easy life. But her need to control her family in order to sustain her sense of self is what creates this inner anxiety, taking pills to ease the anxiety that she seems to have had for a long time, with the weight of these social expectations causing her to develop this habit. She also takes pills whenever her family are around new people that she doesn't approve of and threaten their image, like at the full moon party. Ultimately, Victoria's ending is very ambiguous. She wins in the sense that she discourages Piper from going to the temple, but she exposes just how fragile her sense of self is and may crumble very soon. While she might be in control of things for now, everything will change for the worse when she gets home, and her pills just might not cut it. Piper's ending is similarly ambiguous to her mother's. Piper has been hit with a wave of guilt about her privilege, and as a way of dealing with this, she attempts to hide her true self and create a new identity. To do this, she decides to embrace Buddhism and abandon all the material comforts she has lived with her entire life. But after being challenged by her mother to live in the temple for one day, she realizes that she cannot live without these things. She cannot outgrow or ascend her own privilege, and decides that instead of pretending to be something she's not, she should embrace the upper-class lifestyle. But while Piper thinks her privilege provides freedom, she isn't truly free. She will most likely follow a path that has been laid out for her and end up as a carbon copy of her mother, both bound by the simultaneous freedom and oppression of being upper-class women who will never have lives that are truly their own, living through children of her own one day and always feeling slightly trapped by her sheltered but beautiful life. But if there's hope for any of the Ratliffs, maybe it's Saxon. Saxon is the eldest son and absolutely worships his dad. He feels intense pressure to live up to the family name now that he works at his dad's firm, desperate to be validated by him and insecure about the fact that he didn't truly earn the job. Saxon copes with this by creating a hyper-masculine identity, emulating an extreme version of masculinity in which he equates sex with power. He knows he didn't work for or earn his career, but one thing he can work for is sex, compensating for his insecurities by building an entire identity around his sexual power. But because he views sex with women as a way of asserting his masculinity and gaining power, he doesn't see any value in intimacy. But his hypermasculine identity and values are challenged after being emasculated by his brother, more on that later, and meeting Chelsea, another guest at the resort who highlights the emptiness of his sexual experiences without the presence of intimacy. His sense of self is shattered after witnessing the love that Chelsea shares with her partner and desiring it, finally seeing the value in intimacy and how shallow and meaningless life is without it. By the end of the holiday, Saxon's sense of self has been transformed, no longer bound by the performance of masculinity, and instead in search of something much deeper. Lachlan is maybe the most interesting of the Ratliff family because at first I couldn't figure out the significance of his ending and the final image of the siblings. Lachlan is the people pleaser of the family, and his sense of self changes depending on who he is with, easily manipulating himself to fit the company of whoever he wants to please. Saxon is trying to convert him towards his brand of masculinity, while Piper encourages him to become more spiritual, and his mum is trying to convince him to attend a college she approves of. However, people pleasers are very easily led, and at the full moon party, he is egged on by the party guests and gets very drunk. While in this state, he has sex with Chloe and gives a hand job to his brother because he wants to help him out. Naturally, Saxon is horrified the next morning and avoids his brother for the rest of the trip. Eager to win back his brother's attention, he tries to please him by drinking one of his protein shakes and conforming to his brand of masculinity, not knowing that the blender contains poison from Timothy's abandoned suicide scheme. He nearly dies, and then the family leave the resort, leading to this final shot. While the first shot of the siblings shows Lachlan drinking something and looking happy, the final shot shows him looking very ill and almost hungover. Lachlan had to sacrifice the old version of himself to become himself, with the poison metaphorically killing the false version of himself, as he quite literally tastes the cost of people-pleasing, leaving him with a blank slate to start again. The final image implies that he has learned his lesson and will no longer try to please others at the detriment of himself, hopefully building a more stable identity and no longer bending it to match the people around him. The idea of identity very much applies to Rick and Chelsea, with the doomed lovers having a very tragic ending that is both a win and a loss. Rick's sense of self is entirely defined by his pain, unable to let go of his traumatic childhood and blaming all of his mistakes and flaws on the man who killed his father. Rick uses his trauma as an excuse to not take accountability for his actions, letting this pain define him and shaping his entire identity around the victim mentality. While his past was undeniably difficult, he allowed it to taint the present, unable to see the good in the world around him and how he might be complicit in his own pain. His partner, Chelsea, is very much the opposite. She is a healer and an optimist, making it her life's purpose to heal Rick and widen his perspective. But Rick believes that confronting his father's killer will bring him peace, and after doing so, he accidentally bumps into him once more at the hotel and realizes that words will never be enough to bring him closure, and shoots him. In the following shootout, both Rick and Chelsea are killed, and the final shot shows him floating face up in the water with an expression that we have never seen before, one of true peace and happiness. His entire identity was defined by his suffering, and so he could only find true peace through the ultimate act of suffering, death. This leads us to the final three guests of this season, three middle-aged women called Kate, Jacqueline, and Laurie, who have been friends since childhood and are going on a girls' trip. And it's the dynamic between these women that I found the most moving when rewatching the show, with Mike White exploring how the bonds of friendship change over time and the struggles they have had in accepting themselves. Jacqueline is a successful actor and initiator of the trip. She's very beautiful and often admired for her looks and youthful appearance, something she's been able to build a career out of. However, Jacqueline is terrified of aging, something that is only compounded by her marriage to a younger man and her career's reliance on her appearance. At the beginning of the trip, Jacqueline has an internal crisis after a hotel worker suggests they spend time at a nearby resort that is clearly targeted towards elderly people. Jacqueline's entire sense of self is dependent on her beauty and youth, but as somebody who is aging, her self-worth is threatened, and she goes into panic mode as she tries to convince herself that she is still young. Through this, she sleeps with a hotel worker called Valentin, who Laurie had a crush on, causing a rift in the friend group and reigniting issues they had as teenagers. However, by the end of the holiday, Jacqueline doesn't seem to have resolved any of these issues. Laurie has confronted her about her need to validate herself through men, but it doesn't seem as though she's processed her fears around aging in any real way. Her friendships are deepened through acknowledging the conflict, but this doesn't necessarily imply that she is now self-aware about her flaws and willing to accept herself as she is. Laurie's arc ends on a more resolutely positive note. At the beginning of the holiday, it is clear that Laurie's life is not going as well as her friends'. We learn that her marriage has failed, she didn't get a promotion she wanted at work, and her daughter is going off the rails. On top of this, she is now spending time with two friends who seemingly have their whole lives together, making her feel imperfect and insecure. But after her conflict with Jacqueline, she tries to prove something to herself by sleeping with Valentin's best friend, seemingly trying to convince herself that she is equally as desirable as Jacqueline. But when the encounter ends on a sour note, she realizes that her attempts at polishing herself and trying to impress her friends are pointless. In one beautiful scene, which is my favourite from the entire show, she confesses that she's been unhappy throughout the trip because she was trying to prove something to her friends and felt inferior. But after spending time with them, she's realised that it doesn't matter how they've changed or how their lives have turned out, but what truly matters is the fact they've spent their lives together.
We started this life together. I mean, we're going through it apart, but we're still together, and I look at you guys and it feels meaningful. And I can't explain it, but even when we're just sitting around the pool talking about whatever inane shit, it still feels very fucking deep.
It's a really poignant and relatable revelation because so many of us abandon friendships with people because we no longer feel like our lives and experiences perfectly align. But Laurie questions whether this is possible at all, instead posing that the big stuff doesn't matter and it's all about the small moments and time you spend with each other that really counts. Maybe we are too hasty in throwing friendships away because we think they no longer serve us. But maybe they no longer serve us because we don't give them enough time. It's a beautiful ending and one that highlights a positive change for Laurie as she accepts herself and her friends for who they truly are. And with that, this leads us onto our final guest, and perhaps the only true winner of the season. Kate is a housewife living in Texas. She's married to a very conservative man and is deeply involved in her community, particularly the church. She's warm, friendly, and very diplomatic, often occupying the middle ground in conflicts between her friends and never veering too much towards either side. She'll occasionally interject with her own thoughts when they talk about each other, but never adding anything too scathing to implicate herself in the conflict. While each character in the show goes through an evolution of the self, whether through compromising, sacrificing, hiding, questioning, or discovering their true selves, Kate is the only person who is completely comfortable with herself as she is. Kate is somebody who doesn't necessarily love herself, but has accepted herself nonetheless. She knows what she likes, dislikes, and isn't afraid of asserting her boundaries and breaking away from the group when they do something she doesn't want to do. She steps away from her friends when they start competing with each other, content enough with herself to know that she doesn't need to participate. While Laurie and Jacqueline are always the initiators of gossip sessions, analysing each other's lives behind their backs, Kate always seems reluctant to join in and never says anything hurtful, only adding objective truths or reiterating what the other person said in a less abrasive way. When Kate hears her friends talking about her behind her back, she doesn't react. While she looks hurt and disappointed, she doesn't bring it up with her friends later. While you could read her character as someone who's afraid of conflict, to me, she comes across as someone who is incredibly secure in herself and her life, and doesn't feel the need to create conflict or defend it. During the pool party scene, the group try to pressure her into drinking, partying, and staying up late. However, she doesn't feel the need to compete, assert her youth, or win the attention of the men they're with, and so instead of trying to fit in, she tells them she's too tired and is going to bed. She doesn't feel shame about her age and the things she doesn't want to do. She knows her limits, she doesn't have anything to prove, and the behaviours and opinions of others don't threaten her sense of self. We also see this during the scene where the women talk about politics, where Kate reveals that her husband voted for Trump and she is an independent. Her friends are horrified, and while you could definitely take this as evidence that she is ignorant and the most morally questionable of the group, is another example of her role as the peacemaker, always trying to take the middle ground, maintaining objectivity through neutrality, and not letting her identity be defined by any one thing. By the end of the show, Kate is almost exactly the same as she was at the beginning. While some might see this as a flat character arc, within the context of the show, I see this as aspirational. She is comfortable enough with herself that she no longer needs to think about herself. And doesn't that sound similar to the philosophy of the monks? While she doesn't have no sense of self like the monks encourage, her identity is not an obstacle in her life or something that requires much thought. She is who she is, and she doesn't feel any shame in this. Throughout the season, the monks at the temple are very much painted as being the pillars of wisdom, stability, and reason. And while she doesn't fully embody their philosophy because she's a capitalist and still has an identity, I think her character is the closest to reflecting their principles. She is the peacemaker of the group. She isn't motivated by ego, sex, beauty, and generally accepts herself as she is. She isn't defined by superficial things, like Jacqueline's relationship to her looks, and she isn't defined by her career, like Laurie, but instead devotes her life to the church and the people around her. To me, this is the most aspirational state of being. to be so comfortable with yourself that you no longer need to think about yourself and can purely focus on others. And that is what Kate does. With all her contradictions, Kate is as close to perfect as a White Lotus guest can be. While everyone else in the show goes through ups and downs as they struggle to find, hide, and stay true to themselves, Kate achieves the impossible in the Mike White universe simply by being herself, unbothered by what everyone else is doing, unashamed of who she is, and completely content. And in my eyes, that is a true winner.
Nothing from nothing leaves nothing. You gotta have something if you wanna be with me. Nothing from nothing leaves nothing.
Hey people, this is my apology video slash, not apology, but just I don't think my analysis is particularly new. I think I'm kind of just talking about a lot of things that are maybe fairly apparent when you watch The White Lotus, or yeah, I just don't know if it's particularly new or exciting, or I don't know, to some people, because a lot of these things have been said before about The White Lotus, but I have not been feeling creatively inspired recently, and then this was the only thing that I could actually write because I've just been struggling to write recently. So that's what this video is. Ignore the crisis that I was clearly having when I posted my a short film on this channel. I thought maybe the internet would curry in my favor, but anyway, yeah, you can ignore that. That's just in case there are any really wealthy kind of studio executives that happen to be trawling through the internet and find it and think, oh, maybe this ratty woman will make a film one day. So we shall see. Most likely not. But anyway, that's what this is. Sorry I haven't made a video in a long time. I've been depressed. And sorry if my insights in this video are not particularly like new or whatever. I just kind of wanted to make something fun, and this felt fun to me recently, so that's what that is, and hope you enjoy it.